Let's start with assistant coach of the year, which I actually think is like really fun to think about. The favorite in this market is Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, who I hope people out there will get this reference, is having the time of his life. Brian Flores and Robert Saleh, the second choices. I do find it interesting that the first offensive coach listed here is Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator now of the Seahawks, who's 20-1, along with Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady and Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Otherwise, Femi, this is all defensive coaches at the top of assistant coach of the year. How the heck do you handicap an award like this, and do you have any bets that you'd like to give out?
Yeah, I think the handicap is actually pretty straightforward when you look back at this award, which has only been given out the last 11 years. This will be year 12 for Assistant Coach of the Year. And it's actually a really interesting reasoning for why the defensive coaches get pushed up the boards, which I'll get into here shortly. But let's talk about the criteria, the compass that you want to be looking for this award winner. The preseason expectations, 8 of the 11 winners historically have had a win total of at least 8.5. Including the last 6 winners, mind you. So like teams that are at least above average or are expected to have like maybe take a next step in being good or might already be really good. Maybe the win total is like at 9.5 or 10. Team success matters quite a bit. All 11 winners have made the playoffs. 9 of the 11 winners have won the division, and the 2 non-division winners won 11 games. Like 11-6 is the worst record to win this award. 10 wins or fewer does not get you this award. At least it hasn't over the last 11 years in the award's existence. This one, though, interesting. Statistical output. Something that you want to look at, like how does your unit do in comparison to the rest of the league? 8 of the 11 winners were ranked in the top 5 of offensive or defensive yards per game. So the most simple stat ever to rank units, like yards per game. Who led the league in yards? Who led the league in fewest yards allowed? The 3 exceptions was like 2014 Todd Bowles when he was the DC for the Cardinals, 2017 Pat Shurmur when he was the OC for the Vikings. That was the year they had Case Keenum at quarterback and they had the hell of a season, 13-3. And then 2021 Dan Quinn hired by the Giants, unfortunately, to your chagrin. But 2021, Dan Quinn for the Dallas Cowboys as their defensive coordinator when they had like all those turnovers and Trayvon Diggs had like a bajillion interceptions and they led the league with forced turnovers, but he won the award then. But here's where it gets really fun and why, Nick, you were mentioning a lot of defensive coaches at the top. The highest rated offensive coach, at least in the betting market, happens to be Seahawks OC Clint Kubiak. Here's what's cool about this award. You want to be looking for mismatches in terms of expertise in comparison to the head coach. So what does that mean? If you have an offensive-minded head coach, your winner's probably coming from the defensive side of the ball, and vice versa. If it's a defensive-minded head coach, an offensive coordinator is going to win it. And we know in 2025, most of the head coaches skew on the offensive side of the ball. Like everyone wants a play caller who can help their young quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. Like look at the hiring cycles year over year. Offensive coaches have an upper hand on defensive coaches. So like some cool mismatches a couple of years ago.
Can I give an example of what you're talking about quickly? So for example, just to punch Femi's point home, like Declan Doyle is the Bears offensive coordinator. If the Bears have the number 1 offense in the league, like do you think Declan Doyle's getting the credit or Ben Johnson's getting the credit? Just as an example of what Femi's talking about.
Exactly, 100%. Like nobody's going to say, wow, Declan Doyle did a great job with Caleb Williams. Nobody's saying that. But like in 2023, Jim Schwartz was the DC. Stefanski, of course, an offensive-minded coach. For another one, the last offensive coordinator win this award, not the last one, but one that's really like a pure, clean kind of mismatch was Brian Dable in 2020. Sean McDermott was, of course, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, the defensive-minded guy. Now, last year, like technically, quote-unquote, like Dan Campbell's background is in offense. He was like a tight ends coach, but nobody really sees him that way. He's more of like a CEO type, similar to John Harbaugh, who won it with Greg Roman when he won the assistant coach of the year in 2019. Ben Johnson winning it last year for that Lions team that won 15 games. But like people kind of see Campbell as like a CEO as opposed to like some offensive mastermind, which is why Ben Johnson got all the credit, and rightfully so. So you want those mismatches when you're looking at this award winner. So Vance Joseph, I think he is a real deal contender at 6-1. A lot of expectations for the Broncos defense this year. They're supposed to be one of the best defenses. The team has a win total like at 9.5. A lot of expectations for that team. Makes a lot of sense. Robert Saleh at 8-1, I think, is a contender for this award as well. Another guy who I think is a contender a little bit further down the board, actually, which might be exciting. Joe Brady of the Buffalo Bills. He's at 20-1. To win this award. We can get into some of the skeptical guys and also a couple of bets that I have in this market, but those are the guys that I have as real deal contenders. Let's talk about the guys that are not really on my list to win this award, and for the reasons why. Vic Fangio, he's at 9-1. Mismatch, you have it. But funny enough, and I think it's just because these guys just go on to be good head coaches, we've never had a repeat winner. It's only been 11 years. I think most of the time when you have a winner of this award, they go on to be the head coach, and then they have their head coaching career as opposed to like sticking around as an assistant. But Fangio has won this award when he was paired up with Matt Nagy back in 2018, I believe it was, with the Chicago Bears and that really good defense. Steve Wilkes is at 11-1. I would never bet him. If that defense is good, I think Aaron Glenn's going to get a lot of that credit, being a defensive-minded guy. Clint Kubiak at 20-1. I'm skeptical of it just because I don't believe in Sam Darnold and the quarterback. But if you believe, you out there listening or watching, Clint Kubiak would make a lot of sense since he's paired up with Mike McDonald. But those are a few of guys. I'm skeptical of others, but I just wanted to highlight those guys given the price and where they're at in comparison to the rest of the market. Nick, I can get into some of the guys that I like, but if you wanted to reset it, you can go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you. You bet on this Tuesday. Reset done. Who are some guys you like?
Let's go long shot hunting, I think. I think this is a market to go long shot hunting. I would not bet guys at the top of the markets. Two bets that I like quite a bit. The first one, Ravens defensive coordinator Zach Orr is at 33-1 to win assistant coach of the year. I think this defense is going to be sick this year. The way a lot of people are talking about their front, the way that they really evolved in the back half of last season, like Zach Orr is going to get all the credit for their defensive success. Maybe they produce a defensive player of the year winner. We talked about Kyle Hamilton as a fun long shot if you want to bet DPOY at 50-1. But if that defense is good as it was in the back half of the season, I think Zach Orr would be talked about as an assistant coach of the year. High expectations, high win total. 8 buckets said 13 plus wins. I think Zach Orr makes quite a bit of sense. Another guy that's even a longer shot at 50-1. What about Lions defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard? Aiden Hutchinson now back in the mold. Like, he was an awesome edge for them. Was probably going to win defensive player of the year last year. If that defense can just stay healthy and like be what was prior to all the injuries, Kelvin Shepard, who is a relatively unknown, I think, outside of like his Hard Knocks appearance when the Lions were on Hard Knocks a few years ago, like, he would get a lot of the credit. Defensive credit's not going to Dan Campbell. Those are two fun kind of long shots that if you want to bet this market, Zach Orr in particular, but Kelvin Shepard as well, if you want to go big game hunting for assistant coach of the year.
I don't have the odds board in front of me. Right, so I don't know if I can access it right now in my home state, but there's one name that I think is a little interesting, and like I don't like this guy. I don't like this team, but I think it goes noted that when Baldy came on, and we could do Protector to start next hour. When I asked Baldy about the Colts, the first thing he said was, I don't think they're as talented as the Texans, and this is Houston's division, like to win or to lose, whatever. The Texans fired Bobby Slowick, who was obviously overmatched as the offensive coordinator. So they have like Sean McVay disciple, and I also coached under Liam Cohen. Like Nick Caley is the new offensive coordinator in Houston. I don't like the Texans. Like I like the Jaguars in that division, but like Liam Cohen's going to get all the credit if the offense is good, and the Jaguars are never winning the division because the defense is good. It's never going to happen. So if the Texans are able to win like 11, 12 games, which like I don't think is going to happen, but I also acknowledge is firmly within the realm of possibility, like is Caley someone you'd consider? Like to fix C.J. Stroud in this offense from last year? Because I'm looking at the teams and like he's someone that makes sense to me that's probably a long price.
I'm just skeptical of this offense ever reaching the heights that are needed to win the award. I think they can be improved for sure. And it sounds like DeMeco Ryans feels like they will be improved, how he's talking about Caley in comparison to what they had last year with Bobby Slowick. I just don't know if top 5 is in the range of outcomes when the offensive line is bottom 3rd in the league. That's where I get a little bit problematic. But like, to your point, if they did ever get into the top 5, I mean, I think you'd be hearing about Nick Caley, like, oh, like this is like a hot name among the coaching cycle, et cetera, and he could win that award. I just can't get there, but it's a big price at 40-1. And if you at home are bullish on Houston's offense, he for sure fits the kind of criteria for being a mismatch in terms of expertise in comparison to the head coach.
Man, if you could ever get like the Cardinal, if like Marvin Harrison Jr. ever takes the next step and Trey McBride can actually catch touchdowns and Kyler, Drew Petzing is someone that makes some sense. But I thought you did an awesome job like outlining like what's needed to win this award, and it kind of like cuts down like the teams and the guys that could actually win it.